Hey everyone. So for those, I think I do see a lot of new names here. So I'll just introduce myself. Hi everyone. I'm Shaurabh. I'm the director of systems engineering at AMT. Most of my work is primarily around the MTConnect information model and or any research and development efforts that go with it. So today, I want to just quickly go over the MTConnect's transition to a model-based standard and the progress we have made so far. And how we are implementing it and what we intend to achieve going forward. So model-based standards, like model-based approach, be it conventionally in systems engineering or like what we are trying to do, a model-based standard is basically a methodology where, simply put, models replace a document-centric approach, right? So we use models to define structures, requirements, behaviors, and interactions throughout the product lifecycle. Before we dive into the MTConnect model, I'll just, again, Russ spoke to some of it. I just want to provide a quick overview of, the document-centric versus model-based, keeping, within the context of standards development. So traditionally, standards tend to be documented manually and have lots of pages and text, which, to be honest, most of us know how tedious can that be to read and navigate through. And also, given that it's manually documented, it is more prone to human error. And in many cases, like there are sections and parts of documentation that are repeated across various different sections and parts of the standard, causing duplication, which always is difficult to, makes it difficult to keep track of information and makes it difficult to make any updates because of the duplication. Implementation requires interpretation. What I mean by that is, say, if I'm an end user and have to do an implementation of the standard, I want to build something that abides by a specific standard, then I have to read the entire text and hope that I correctly interpret every section, every detail of the document to my needs. So that's where things are, that's where things get different with model-based standard development. So let's start with the basics. So model serves as a single source of information. Information now can be cross-reference that reduces the duplication that we talked about earlier and increases usability. Now, models can represent all constraints and relationships that might be limited when you go about implementing it, say, even within XML schemas and JSON schemas. Each of the implementations have their own limitations. So models help us extend that capability. All artifacts are derived from the singular model. You don't have to worry about the different human interpretation side of it because the model can be automatically consumed by software systems. Say I want a list of every entity in a taxonomy, like I want a list of all the components. How many does MTConnect have? I don't necessarily have to read and then make a copy of it. What I can simply do is eliminate the risk of missing something out. I can just export all the entities, all the components defined by the model. It's as simple as that. Now, this leads to the next point. Models are defined using machine-readable modeling language. So we can create automated tools for verification. It makes comprehensive verification and validation of not only the model or the standard itself, but also of the implementations against the standard possible. And of course, another hot topic in standard is just harmonization within the standard ecosystem. The models make it easy to harmonize with one another, especially if all the standards have their own respective models. it makes it very, very easy to map one model to the other. So let's go to how MTConnect has adopted the model-based approach and how we are currently leveraging its benefits. Okay, so again, I'll just quickly provide an overview of how currently the standard is being developed and what we used to do before. Okay, I'll just, hold on. Oh, sorry, I was just going through the chat. By the way, if anyone has any questions, any comments, or just to provide more context to this, please feel free to speak up and we can just pick that up. So now MTConnect, as a quick overview, it's developed by the industry for the industry. Everyone here knows that. We have experts from the industry volunteer their time in, come together and sign on to be a part of the standards committee, which in turn has working groups focused on specific areas that the standard addresses, like machine tool, robotics, additive, thermal validation, and so on. Now, most of the blocks that you see here have been around for a long time. And in the last few years, we have seen standard developing organizations widely deploy online issue tracking. Most of the tools have simply been borrowed from the software industry, where it's been going on for a much longer time. MTConnect specifically uses Redmine and GitHub, and hopefully I'm not missing out on something else. But there are a ton of other examples like Jira, Mantis, but there are so many more. So what we used to do before the model-based release what would typically happen is that an issue on the Redmine online issue tracking would be raised by a concerned standards committee member. Now, this could be a new feature request, it could be a correction, it could be an update, it can be a variety of different things. The issue then is discussed by the standards committee group within, discussed by the standards committee and then assigned to a specific working group to develop and present a proposal to be added to the next version of the standard. And then it goes through the approval process, is documented upon approval, and then enters the 90-day review period and is then voted for release and released as official standard release, where the normative documents were the PDFs. This was still 2.0. Now, how have we changed that in 2.0 is that we have introduced the MTConnect information model. Now, with MTConnect, we are going from hold on, I see a comment. Okay. So with MTConnect, we are now going from issues being managed in the online issue tracking software, from there to directly manually updating the documents and releasing them. From there, we are going to a more integrated approach where including SysML at the heart of it. So where now you go from anything that the, okay, actually I can walk you through that process. Okay, so we so this is the Redmine project site that MTConnect standard development. We just use that as part of the process to track the issues. We have certain set of templates. We came up with the templates to enable better collaboration between the modeling as well as the standard development side of it. So the template basically makes it easy not only for the working group to come up with certain required aspects of a concept, but it also makes it easier on the modeling front. Now we come up with the templates. These templates are used, and then we have something called as the model browser, where if someone wants to, say, create a new issue or maybe add something to it. For example, this is the device information model. Let's say for components, I want to create an additional property of a component, or I want to recommend doing that. Then you can just click on submit comments. You can type in the summary and description. That automatically creates an issue in the project site, and from there it can be discussed in the standards committee meeting and be assigned to a specific working group. So the model itself is interfaced into the standard development process, which previously was very document specific and just went through the human side of it. Now, going back Now, historically, we did have an information model when we speak of it in XML schema as well. We didn't necessarily publicize it like that, but it was used for the implementation of the standard, and it was manually maintained as well. But the XML schema itself has, like I mentioned previously, some limitations. It could not entirely represent the standard because it was not able to model things like constraints and behaviors in certain types of relationships. And also because it was manually maintained, sometimes there would be some mistakes or something missing, which would be fixed when one of our users went on to implement it and would report it to us. It would not happen that often, but it would does and still does sometimes, going back to an older implementation. So for all those reasons, MTConnect moved to a model-based approach using SysML, which Russ also pointed out, it's a visual modeling language. Typically for systems, we leverage it to model MTConnect information model as well. And all those things that we could not previously do with the XML schema, now we can do with the SysML and a lot more. Like I mentioned, the official release document, which was previously PDF, has now been replaced by XMI. XMI stands for XML Metadata Interchange, which primarily is used for exchanging metadata information via XML, simply put. So let's take a look at the model. So the tool that we use for the model development is Cameo Enterprise Architect. The tool itself, the subscription of it requires, it's a paid subscription. So what we have done is, I'll walk through this, the model, but I'll just come to this bit. So let's focus on this bit. So what we have done, one of the artifacts that we have generated from XMI when we released the 2.0 model-based standard is we created a model browser. Now, what the model browser enabled us to do was model browser, there you go. So the model browser generated from the SysML model from specifically the Cameo Enterprise Architect software tool, it now provides an open source ability to navigate through the model. And the experience is pretty much similar to what you would experience in the model. So as you can see here, it's the same as, pretty much same as what you see in the model. So the access to model kind of in a controlled way is available publicly, as well as our standards committee members have have the additional ability to provide comments and create issues. So if you log into the project site, you can actually provide comments. If you don't, if you simply go to the model.mtconnect.org, the official website, there you can browse through the standard, and it has a searchable index as well. So now going back to the model now. So we follow a certain set of practices for modeling the standard in SysML to begin with. We started off by simply modeling in the MTConnect semantics, but we are also leveraging existing modeling practice, standard practices published by other standard bodies like ISO. So there's a standard ISO 704, which goes into the specifics around how a definition should be framed, how it should be structured. At the same time, also talks about how the definitions need to be composed. So those are a couple of things we are currently working on with each version release to come up with more composable definitions. And coming back to the model, we currently break down an MTConnect device, say, into smaller components. And for each one of those components, we define its structure, its property, its static and dynamic behavior, the set of requirements that may come along with it, and even interaction. So the model allows for how a state machine would behave, be it for the part 5 of the standard, basically, earlier known as part 5, has an interface interaction model, which defines how two entities, how two components, how two devices can interact and exchange information with one another using a read information exchange. Now, so all of those bits can be modeled in fairly comprehensively as compared to what was possible through the XML schema. So this is a complete representation of the standard, and now hence going forward, since 2.0 has replaced the Word and the PDF documents as the single source of the official release, which is the XMI. So the XMI is exported from this software tool. It's 2.5 XMI format. Whoops, sorry. And going back to others, okay. Yeah, so from the XMI itself, so each one of these blocks basically represent what and in what capacity can you leverage, or currently we are leveraging the XMI. And you can see the links if you'd like to go and look at any one of these singular projects. But the idea here is what you see on the right, documents in PDF, LaTeX, and Markdown. So previously we did PDF from Word, we generated that, manually maintained it. Now it's generated off of the XMI. Similarly, the same thing goes for XML and JSON, the model browser I already pointed to. On the left-hand side, what you see is more to do with code generation using the XMI to generate code. So the C++ agent has, So the C++ agent has an abstraction called entity, where it basically structures the components and its properties, all of that eventually. So the dashed line basically is ongoing work and to be done in the future. So it would eventually be generating its own entity abstraction from the model itself. There are other projects like MTConnect Transpiler and the validator with which I don't know if Trey is presenting today, but so the MTConnect validator is basically for validation of MTConnect response documents that the agent generates. MTConnect Transpiler, on the other hand, deserializes the XMI to kind of help automate the development of any other MTConnect related tools that you may want to generate the code for. So an example of how the MTConnect transpiler works is the MTConnect validator, which kind of leverages the transpiler. And then another thing that is being currently worked on is the companion specification. So we do have bits and okay, so not in this, it's in another project. Anyway, coming back to the core of it, the idea there is OPCUA currently is working on its own UML model, and we are working on the Spark+B model as well with the Eclipse Foundation, where the idea is you have models of different standards, and then you model in the companion specification, which essentially means mapping the semantics and the protocol layer if necessary, and creating a profile to do so, and then generating any said document or artifact from the model itself. So these are some of the tools that already have been developed and are being developed that as a standard committee member, as any end user can leverage, be it simple validation for their agent or device file, or if they want to create their own extension of the agent, that is also allowed. You can create your own set of software using the transpiler, which just helps with the code generation, just software development process from the XML. It just makes it easy. And then, of course, you can just currently leverage what already exists in terms of the human readable documents, as well as the XML and JSON schemas. So that's all in all what I had. And I'm going to stop. And if anyone has any questions, there's a lot, by the way, to just keep talking about the model itself. So if there's anything specific with regards to the model that anyone would like me to go into, please let me know. I think I still believe I have like 5-10 minutes. So yeah, any questions, any comments, any requests, anything?
Yeah, I have a request for the people in the audience. This is a recurring, ongoing project, so it would be helpful to know what things to focus on and what things to emphasize more when kind of presenting anything about the model or the approach to modeling. We'll do sessions like this on a recurring basis, as well as, kind of putting out other material. So knowing what Shaurabh is saying that is most clear and most needing additional attention would be helpful from the audience. You can use the chat to put questions in, or just unmute yourself and jump in if you have questions or comments.
Hey, Shaurabh, I have a quick question. I have a need to find out the difference between the version, right? So between, let's say, 2.1 and 2.2. I know there's a page that it could describe all the addition and deprecation stuff in the SysML page, but maybe you could drive to that, right? Yeah. Is there a way to put some color behind those items? Because I think those are automatically generated. So wonder, let's say, for example, asset change, asset remove, things like that. There's some new definition within that stuff to add on, but for people actually understand, what that means, right? Is there a way to put some color behind those items? Meaning, why they are introduced or something like that.
Okay. So just to recap, so one of the things in what we do with the model browser is generate based on just version tracking that we do, just generate the difference between two consecutive standard releases. So with regards to the reason, I think that's something that we are not necessarily tracking right now, but I think we can get that done. Yeah, it's more like we are currently not doing it, but as a feature request, I think we can put that in.
Yeah, maybe you could click one of the item like asset change, right? So
Yeah.
So I noticed there's a 2.2, and so that's probably what that is about, right? The event enum and the string hash string. That's what the new item is. But then there's not much additional information about these two items and what they are being used for. So one suggestion I have is, maybe in the property there's a comment, there's an additional comment that you could put some reason why they are added in this version from ongoing forward.
Okay.
Simon, can you open up a new issue in the project site for that?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it'll be, so it's something I think has been once brought up before in not necessarily the same flavor, but just the value of, so we have been talking about use case in general, and one of the additions to the standard, hopefully in the next release or two, is going to be just use case and how to go about how to go from developing something, introducing something to the standard. When I mentioned, say, the issue templates, kind of in each of, when you're introducing or proposing something, also having the use case well defined along with what is being proposed. So I think if we can track that back to whatever gets added to the standard and just point to the use case that it addresses, I think that might kind of give you a more a better picture of why something is added and not just when it was added. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great idea. That's exactly what I'm looking for is the reason behind all these changes, right? Use case definitely will do.
Yeah, so that already is in some sense underway, but this is a neat idea to tie it back into the model. So I do like that. So yeah, I think this is definitely in the next working group meeting, we can pick this up. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Thanks, Shaurabh. It was a good presentation.